Hi everybody, today's video I'm gonna do some appliances. There would be some big appliances and let's do also some small appliances. So this will be the demo on the high level, and I'm gonna start with the fridge, then go to washing machine, oven and toaster. So let's create a fridge design over here. I already set up the symmetry, and I can use the brush to just create a quick sketch of some sort of fridge. So it's going to be a front view. It's a super simple device, so I'll just use Shift for straight lines, and maybe I try to make a clean fridge. We're gonna have a separation here. For that, I just use the move tool to hold down Shift and make it a bit bigger like this to get maybe a proper fridge proportion more so. Also scale it up a bit, scale it down a bit. Okay. And let's say this is a modern minimalist black metal refrigerator, and let's go with that. Okay, nice. This is closer to the aesthetic what I want to see. Awesome. Yeah, this is quite minimalist. We're getting some hinges maybe here and some smaller details that can just sell the visual even more. We can always go lower on the drawing influence and see if it can refine some of the surfaces, but this is basically just a rectangle. Okay, awesome. This is pretty cool. It got sort of rendered out, and we can decide if you want a metal handles or something which is just a subtle metal cylinder like this. I quite like the design of it. It implies that it's like a magnetically working door or of some sort. It just looks interesting. Okay, at this point, it pretty much made the fridge. We can always add it to the canvas, and I can always regenerate to have alternatives. Or now I can start exploring, and the goal will be here is to create a visualization out of the fridge and then open up the fridge and visualize the interior of it as well. And now you can see here the effect that on the first rendering, it couldn't quite achieve this level of contrast to make it very deep black or like a true black color. But since I added a rendering which now has the depth, it can render on top of it something which has more depth to it. Not more depth, but a more saturated black color. So we can go to something like this, but I reckon this is a cleaner visual overall, so I will keep this one. What I'm thinking, here we got this double door design, and what I'm gonna do is I add this, and I will visualize the open fridge with the double door design, and in this case, I will just get rid of the actual handles. So I use Magic Eraser to just simply remove the handles. 1 and 2. And now we get a cleaner rendering without the handles, so we can use this double doored approach. At the same time, I'll also upload a few reference images too. So I just drag and drop a few images onto the canvas. These are image references. I can select them and rearrange them, maybe scale them down a bit. I make one of these as reference images. For example, this one can add a cool style to it. This one can add an interesting material, interesting shape. Awesome. And now if I go in here, I can utilize these reference images. And first of all, let's put the emphasis on the shape itself. So that's what we're gonna do here. Let's generate according to this reference image. Now we can see here, we actually get a really interesting idea coming from this reference image. And the resemblance is obviously visible, that this like silver middle part is gonna act as sort of the door handles or what we can reach to open it up. And then maybe this bottom part can open in a different way by pushing that button. It's a super interesting effect, and we got this like cloth like bottom section as well. So I'll keep this because it's pretty interesting and a new approach. So we had this very like monolith simple aesthetic, and then we applied the reference image to put into something which can make this into a centerpiece of the room, as opposed to something which is supposed to just hide in and then blend into the overall minimalist room aesthetic. But I'm gonna just clean this up and then apply a reference image for some alternative environment effect. And now I'm not entirely sure if I want to see this digital screen offsetted like this. Maybe I try to remove it and see if that works a bit better. Yeah, I think it's quite clean this way. And then basically we can go ahead and just apply a scene like this or an interior like this. We can try both, but I'm going to try it with the first one, but I lower down on the strength of the reference image and I keep it pretty high, the actual drawing influence. So I'm going to go ahead and now transfer this overall scenery and aesthetic to the image. Okay, now as we get some quite luxurious room scene over here. And by applying reference image onto the entire canvas, it can really nicely make sure that everything is integrated into the sort of the cohesive aesthetic. This image was also nice, but if you want to just put things together and apply a reference image to the entire canvas, then it's going to really nicely democratize the aesthetic. You can also see some interesting CMF variation. So maybe I can go with this one. And now I want to open up the fridge. I want to have a human as well here. So for opening up the fridge, I will just simply sketch on top of it. And now the cool thing is I can just use the lasso tool or the selection tool to select this entire area here that I've touched. And now I can say this is like a modern open fridge with food inside. And now I no longer want to use the reference image. I'll just use the Viscom General at 50% influence. And let's try it in render. I think we have to go to refine and build it up with an iterative process. So probably that's what I'm going to do. But I'll just quickly try it in refine in render as well. Okay, so it works pretty well. Yeah, this is already super nice. We can go with something like that. And in render, it usually casts some shadows as well because of the selection mask. So if you want to get rid of it, feel free to just use the eraser tool on this layer. And let's get back to this. This was the original rendering. So here I can use the eraser and set it up to be soft by reducing on the hardness. And maybe not this much. And now you can see here I can just clean this area up a bit. What we can also do is I can also bring in a human by the template models here. So I can just scroll down where we can find a template human model. And I can place this into the visual, so I don't necessarily have to like sketch out a human. I just have to make sure that the focal length is comparable to the focal length of the rendering. So, and of course this nicely can determine the proportion size of the actual fridge. We want to have maybe a 2-meter fridge or something like that. Now we can put him on the side. Let's just select the human. If you want to be more precise, we can use auto selection on the human. Let's do just a rough selection. Viscom will know what we want to do here. And now I can say, guy is standing in front of the fridge. This description is completely enough. We want to use a full palette influence here, and we can also use very high drawing influence since this input is quite defined. If you have a loose sketch of a human, we can always go low on the drawing influence, but in this case, it's completely fine to exactly render on top of this. But so as you can see, it's super quick to put together visualizations like this with the help of just like sketching and prompting. So it's essentially just creating the structure that we render on top. This will be perfect for us. And we can, of course, export this. We established the shape as a pretty cool new concept of graphical element, including all the handles basically on the fridge. So this was a cool workflow. We can move to the other one, which is essentially going to be, let's do a quick washing machine, or let's see what we can get with it. Awesome. This is quite an abstract shape. You make this into a minimalist washing machine, and let's see what we're gonna have. I'm very curious. That's a cool interpretation. We can go a bit lower even. I like this shape. This is quite cool. And I want to keep iterating. Now we're talking. It's cool. And I just keep on generating and selecting whichever idea I like the most. I just wanted to see shape of a washing machine when the actual circular drum is influencing the outline as well. Maybe it's a bit like a camera too. So what we can also do is I'll make a big circle, a filled-in circle, holding down Shift for proportional scale, lowering on opacity to make this a bit darker overall, because maybe I want to have a black and white contrast here. So let's see if this helps it to recognize the difference in contrast, or if I have to refine as opposed to render here. Okay, now we got the contrast recognized. Pretty cool shape over here. Yeah, I'll go with this. But we don't necessarily need a logo here. We get a few digital screens, but overall it's quite a cool concept that we can see. What can be also cool to see is actual like clothes spinning in there. So we can maybe try to visualize something like it by creating a new layer, and let's sketch in a few clothes maybe. Clothes in the washing machine drum getting washed in motion water. I'm just basically spitting out keywords how I like to see this visual, but I want to see like this motion of the washing machine is washing the clothes. Okay, we got something like this one. Let's go higher on the influence, or let's use refine as opposed to render. Maybe it couldn't really spot the things that I meant to visualize there. Okay, this one is quite cool. You can always revisit render to see what it's gonna do with this. Couldn't quite get the motion, but look, this looks quite cool. This looks very cool here. Just gives it a little bit of a dim effect, this round area too. So this is quite cool. You can always make it a bit darker with the help of this layer. So we can do something like this. And I export it. And of course, I can also, so let's do detail 3D. And in the meantime, while it's loading, I'm gonna go and do a very quick oven. But essentially, I think something like this will be the entirety of the oven. So it's going to be, let's see if it can recognize it. And it could recognize it. Oh yes, it's a rectangular oven with a handle, full indoor minimalist design. Here I would just lower down on the drawing influence, and I would say it's a rectangular oven, it's a modern minimalist as well, it's a modern full glass oven. Okay, and now it's putting it in like a proper kitchen setting as well, so it's like a built-in oven. So that's definitely one setting. Since I put this quite up and I don't have any sort of lines resembling a kitchen setting, it's gonna build it into the wall, which is actually gonna be nice for us. So I'm also just gonna extend these lines a bit to visualize that it's indeed built inside a kitchen wall. But we can go up a little bit. We can just pick an initial shape, maybe this one, and then we can start saying that it's actually like it's a black rectangular oven built into the kitchen wall. But now we have the contrast on the screen, which is going to tell Viscom that this is a darker part, this is a darker part. So it will pick up on these, but oh my, I like this. I like this really much. The copper effect that it added on the first rendering, I really like this. So I'm going to also say copper details, and we can just keep iterating here. Okay, this is cool. It's perhaps a little bit shouty, but I think I'm gonna go with this one. We got the controls as well. We got copper details. It's not like a very seamless integration here, but I think this can be cool. It's more like a centerpiece this way. Then we can just sketch in a, let's say, some sort of nice food in the oven. Okay, I'm just gonna say it's food is being cooked in the oven. And then of course I can either refine, so let's, but I wanna maybe render in this case. Okay, now the render is really strong. Might have to clean that part up. Things that I can do is let's try refine maybe at 30%. Okay, yeah, refine will be our friend here. it's much better integrated into the rest of the aesthetic. Now we can also put in a human hand if you wanna. So maybe something like this could work for the scene, but if you also want to make a black hand or like a full, just a plain black human, what can be possible is if you flatten out the layer by Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, now you have an image, and if you expose it by holding down Alt or Option on the keyboard, clicking on the eye, and setting it to multiply, on the alpha channel, it will make it black. And now you can make an export, you can put it back, so that you have a black layer with a hand that you can use for visuals. But of course, it's fitting visuals more so like this, when we can actually need the like this black contrast. But this is just a cool trick if you want to achieve black hands to sort of display this. Okay, that was the oven workflow, and then we can move to the last one, which is the toaster workflow. Let's give it a go. So this is gonna be a slick rectangular toaster. It can always recognize the sketches, nice. And let's try what it can create, maybe at 75% drawing influence. Not the most accurate sketch. Let's see what it can do. It basically solved the surfaces which I was struggling with at the moment. So for example, this would be a nice solution. Just put the holes here, and let's clean this up just a little bit. We don't need those areas. Lengthen this up a bit, and maybe we can say this is also black metal, black, let's say, polished metal. We can of course use other styles or other palettes inside this scum. So that's what I can also do here. Okay, using the surface sculpt, we can get something which has a more sketchy effect to it. This also looks quite cool. What I want to also do here is apply this reference image, how I applied it to the fridge as well, and let's see what it's gonna provide for us. Yeah, this is what exactly I was looking for, to have the controls integrated into this middle sort of silver part, just like how we had it with the fridge. I'll use this one, but I'll just go out to make the comparison with the fridge as well. So we had this layer that I can just copy and put here. Awesome. And now we can see the language is kind of comparable between these products, which can be a cool family effect that we can explore. And now, of course, I can start fixing some things here. So I can sketch over and make everything into the cohesive aesthetic a bit more if I want to do that. Use the magic eraser to remove this unwanted part to have like an overall clean rendering. We also want to remove this part. And don't forget about the shadow or the reflection. We also have to remove it from the reflection. Oh, nice. Now we can also turn this into a 3D model. So I click on Generate 3D, and also I'll sketch in some breads. So let's roughly sketch in some breads on a new layer. I just very roughly sketched out the toasts. I can just call them out as toast in the toaster. Let's roughly select these. Click on Generate with lower drawing influence, since we want to visualize this in a more detailed way. Okay, awesome. Oh, it looks pretty good. We can do this one. Let's deselect and maybe clean it up with soft eraser a little bit. These edges. These are unwanted artifacts here, so I'll just gently erase these out. But with this, I'm going to also input the hand template model that you can find at the very bottom. I import it, and now we can do the hand visualization that it reaches towards the toast, for example. And here I also wanted to show the trick. You can either create a photoreal human hand by simply selecting the hand and saying that it's a hand and rendering it in a photorealistic way. Using high drawing influence can ensure that it will not add like a sixth finger to the hand, so that's why it's quite good that we have a 3D model of a hand, so it can stick to the actual lines. And as you can see, if you allow more freedom, it can screw up the hand a bit. So that's why you want to maintain high drawing influence. If you just want to display it as like an industrial design style with this, with the black hand, that can also be done. So instead of this, what we can do is, the quickest way to achieve it is if you just copy this layer, paste it in by Ctrl V, and now it's going to become an image layer out of the 3D model that you can just simply isolate by clicking on the eye, holding down Option or Alt, and clicking on the eye icon. And now this is an image layer. If it's isolated, we have the alpha channel. And if you do multiply on the alpha channel, now the layer is going to become black. And this is what we need. So for this, we need to create an export, because this is just a multiply setting that will not be visible if we start turning back on the actual images. So first we have to create an export. And I can just put it back, the exported black hand. And now we get a black hand. Now we can determine the opacity of this layer to make like an industrial design, like visualization out of this. So that's what I probably do here. Maybe I do something like that. What we could of course also do is to create like a kitchen countertop with the selection tool. So maybe I try it as well here. What we can do is grabbing auto select. I auto select, for example, the toaster part by adding it by just shift clicking, and you can invert the selection. We can always make it more accurate by using the other selection tools. So maybe I just do a bit more accurate selection here. But now essentially the emphasis or the selection is at the background, since we inverted. So now I can say this is a kitchen scene, a kitchen countertop, and it can be marble. Toaster is on the kitchen countertop. And of course we can generate a rendering without the selection as well, but here, since now I selected the background, I can also go lower with the drawing influence, since I don't have to worry about that it's going to change the actual shape of the toaster. And now we can sort of visualize the kitchen countertop this way. It can be rough. It even added a cable there. So maybe we can have something like this cool addition here. And I also want to remove this part before I do the other rendering. So we don't want to see that. Okay, and I set the palette influence to be 20%. And let's see what this will result in. So what it essentially does is that it's going to just blend everything together into the overall aesthetic, and it's going to match together the lighting scenarios as well, which we can use to have a more cohesive rendering. I recommend to lower palette influence if you just want to subtly have an influence or subtly want to implement something into the rest of the aesthetic. Okay, now this one is quite nice. We can use this, but essentially we got this like marble kitchen countertop. Of course, we can modify that area as well and keep going, keep sketching even, but this will be sufficient enough for us. We can reintroduce this hand layer, and there we go. That was the toaster workflow. We explored quite a bit of home appliances, either big ones or small ones. Let me know if you have questions regarding these workflows, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.